On our wedding anniversary, my husband said, "Leave me, and you won't survive 3 months." But the money that hit my account on Monday silenced him completely. Chapter 1, he said I wouldn't survive 3 months without him. Leave me, and you won't even survive 3 months. Holding a wine glass, Gu Zhenfeng stood beside the head table at our 15th wedding anniversary banquet and in front of more than 40 friends and family members uttered those very words. A hush fell over the private dining room, followed moments later by a burst of laughter. Some guests lowered their heads to pick up food with their chopsticks. Others exchanged glances. Still others wore expressions that seemed to say, "This is getting interesting, let's see how it plays out." Sitting right beside him, Lin Jixia simply set down her chopsticks, slowly and deliberately. She didn't laugh. Nor did she look angry. She merely looked up to check the digital clock on the wall. 晚上7点43分. In the countless times she would look back on that moment, she realized that was likely the exact instant her marriage truly came to an end. The anniversary banquet had been organized by Gu Zhenfeng. He had chosen the city's most renowned hotel, the one overlooking the river. He booked the largest private dining room. He ordered from the most expensive menu. Even the wine had been specially shipped in from a friend's vineyard. Over the years, Gu Zhenfeng had grown increasingly fond of such spectacles. He loved being the center of attention. He loved hearing people address him as President Gu. He loved hearing people praise him for being a self-made man. And most of all, he loved seeing others envy his successful career and his picture-perfect family life. At this moment, it was clear he had already had a bit too much to drink and was feeling rather boisterous. "Zhenfeng, isn't that a bit of an absolute statement?" A distant cousin chimed in with a chuckle. "After all, your wife is a college graduate." Gu Zhenfeng waved his hand dismissively. "So what if she's a college graduate? She hasn't worked a day in 15 years, just let her try going out and finding a job now." Another wave of laughter swept through the room. Lin Jixia sat there quietly. The food on the plate before her had already gone cold. Suddenly, her thoughts drifted back to many years ago. Back then, she had just resigned from her job. Gu Zhenfeng had taken her hands in his and said, "Jixia, from now on, I'll take care of everything at home. You don't have to work so hard anymore. I'll provide for you." Back then, she had believed him. It was only later that she came to understand. When some men say, "I'll provide for you," it isn't a promise. It is, in fact, a form of control, a trap laid in advance. It just so happened that, back then, it sounded exactly like a sweet declaration of love. It took many years to realize it was a yoke. "Tixia, wouldn't you agree?" Gu Zhenfeng suddenly tossed the conversation her way. All eyes turned toward her in unison. She raised her head. Gu Zhenfeng was smiling. Her mother-in-law, Zhao Meiling, was smiling too. Beside them, her sister-in-law kept her head down, fiddling with her phone, yet secretly pricked up her ears. Everyone was waiting for her to play along. Just as she had for the past 15 years. Playing along to ensure her husband's success. Playing along to maintain family harmony. Playing along to validate everyone else's sense of superiority. Lin Jixia gave a faint smile. "What exactly do you want me to say?" Gu Zhenfeng hadn't expected her to answer with a question of her own. He paused, momentarily taken aback. "Oh, just share your thoughts. It's been 15 years, after all. If it weren't for me, would you be living such a comfortable life right now?" No sooner had the words left his lips. Her mother-in-law immediately chimed in. "Does that even need saying? The greatest blessing in Jixia's life was marrying Zhenfeng. Just look at how many women out there wish they could live a life like this, but simply can't." Some people at the table nodded in agreement. Others chimed in with their support. Zhao Meiling grew more animated the more she spoke. "She doesn't have to go to work every day. She lives in a huge house. She drives a luxury car. She can buy whatever she wants without ever having to check the price tag. Where else could she find a life this charmed?" Lin Jixia listened in silence. Suddenly, she realized something. Over the years, she really had become nothing more than an accessory, just as others described her. Whenever she was mentioned, it was always Mrs. Gu. The Gu family's daughter-in-law. Zhenfeng's wife. Yet very few people remembered that she, too, was once simply Lin Jixia. The dinner party continued. The more Gu Zhenfeng drank, the more jovial he became. He began regaling everyone with the story of how he built his business. He spoke of how arduous the early days had been. He recounted his own rags to riches rise. He described, step by step, how the company had grown into what it was today. As his excitement mounted, he even stood up from his seat. Man, you see. He needs to have capability. Without capability, he can't even provide for his own wife and children. Applause rang out. Some people raised their glasses to toast him. Others heaped him with flattery. Lin Jixia lowered her head and took a sip of warm water. Her stomach felt a bit unsettled. It had been like this quite often over the past 6 months. Her doctor had advised her to stop staying up so late. But she never seemed to find the time. No one knew that every night, after the clock struck midnight, long after the Gu family had all gone to sleep, she would still sit alone in the study, reviewing documents, researching information, and writing. She had been doing these things for nearly a year now. Yet she had never told anyone about them. Because the time was not yet right. Gu Zhenfeng, having finished speaking, sat back down. Suddenly, he turned his gaze toward her. Cixia. If, one day, we were to get divorced, how long do you think you'd survive? The private dining room fell silent instantly. Everyone was stunned. No one had expected that such a topic would come up on their wedding anniversary. Yet Gu Zhenfeng spoke as if he were merely cracking a joke. Don't be nervous. It's just a hypothetical. Lin Jixia looked at him, remaining silent. Gu Zhenfeng continued to smile. I'd give you 3 months. 3 months, tops. You wouldn't pay the mortgage when it came due. You wouldn't pay the utility bills. You wouldn't even buy car insurance. You probably wouldn't even remember your bank card PIN. A few friends laughed aloud. President Gu, that's a bit harsh, isn't it? I'm just joking around. Don't take it seriously, sis. Lin Jixia suddenly realized something. Not a single person in the room thought there was anything wrong with those words. They actually found them amusing. It was like hunters discussing how many days a caged bird might survive once released. No one cared whether the bird Xinghao wanted Xinghao to fly. They only cared whether it would starve to death. Zhao Meiling laughed along. Zhenfeng is right. Women really do need to rely on men. Otherwise, life is simply impossible to manage. Lin Jixia gazed at the cup of tea before her, now completely cold. She suddenly recalled last winter. She had come down with a high fever. 40 degrees Celsius. Gu Zhenfeng was away on a business trip. Her mother-in-law had said, "What's the big deal about an adult running a fever? Just take a pill, you'll be fine." She had taken a taxi to the hospital all by herself. She had registered for admission alone. She had sat through her drip alone. Sitting in the emergency room at 3 o'clock in the morning. Even the nurse had asked, "Where is your family?" She had sat there, stunned, for a long moment. Because she suddenly realized. She didn't seem to know the answer herself. Where, exactly, Xinghao was Xinghao her family? By the time the banquet drew to a close, it was nearly 10 o'clock. The guests began to depart, one by one. The entrance to the hotel was ablaze with light. The wind blew in from the riverbank. It was a bit chilly. Gu Zhenfeng had drunk too much. The driver pulled the car up. He leaned against the car door. Suddenly, he grabbed Lin Jixia by the arm. "Are you angry?" Lin Jixia shook her head. "No. Really not. No." Gu Zhenfeng smiled. "I knew it. You have the best temper. Besides, I was telling the truth. If you leave me, what will become of you?" The wind ruffled the hair across Lin Jixia's forehead. She looked at the man standing before her, the man she had shared her life with for 15 years. Suddenly, he felt like a stranger. He didn't even realize it. The question had never been whether could Xinghao survive. But rather, all these years. How Xinghao exactly had she been surviving? Zhenfeng. It was the first time she had ever called him by his given name. Gu Shenfeng paused, taken aback. Do you really think that I couldn't survive without you? Gu Shenfeng nodded without hesitation. Of course. It's not just you. Anyone would struggle to adapt if they left their current life behind. Don't worry. I won't divorce you. As he spoke those words, his tone carried a condescending air of magnanimity, as if granting a favor. As if the decision to divorce, or not to divorce, had always been his alone to make. Lin Jixia suddenly smiled. It was the first genuine smile she had offered all evening. Gu Shenfeng looked baffled. What are you smiling at? Nothing much. I just had a sudden thought. What thought? Lin Jixia gazed out at the pitch-black surface of the river in the distance. She spoke softly. Sometimes, a person's greatest mistake isn't looking down on others. It's failing to see them at all. Gu Shenfeng frowned. He didn't understand. But Lin Jixia had already turned and stepped into the car. All the way home, neither of them spoke another word. Once they arrived home, Gu Shenfeng fell asleep almost immediately. The sound of his snoring drifted out from the bedroom. It was 1 o'clock in the morning. Lin Jixia walked into the study alone. In the corner of the desk sat a small potted succulent. Its leaves had begun to yellow. It looked as if it were on the verge of withering away. Many people had said it couldn't be kept alive. But she was the only one who knew the truth. The roots of that little succulent had already filled the entire pot. All it takes is a change of scenery. And soon enough, things will grow back again. She opened her laptop. Lying quietly in her inbox was a single unread email. Sender: Chen Qiming. The email contained only one sentence. Tixia, everything has been confirmed. The funds will be deposited by 9 a.m. on Monday. Lin Jixia stared at that line of text. She stared at it for a long time. Then, slowly, she closed her laptop. Outside the window, the night was thick and heavy. Inside the bedroom, Gu Shenfeng was still fast asleep. He had no idea that the single remark he had made at the commemorative banquet had already acted like a key, flung wide open a door. And on the other side of that door lay a silent storm, gathering force and poised to strike. Monday. It was drawing ever closer. Chapter 2, Everyone is waiting for her to break. The news of Lin Jixia moving out of the Gu family home spread on Wednesday. It wasn't something she had announced herself. Rather, it was Zhao Meiling who had sent a voice message to the family group chat. Young people throw tantrums, she'll be back in a couple of days. Don't try to talk her out of it. She won't last more than a few days living on her own. Mere 20 seconds long. Yet it was like a pebble tossed into a still pond. In less than half an hour, the group chat was buzzing with activity. Her second aunt sent a laughing with hands over mouth emoji. Her third uncle remarked that no married couple stays mad at each other overnight. Her cousin-in-law asked directly, "Where is Jixia staying right now?" No one answered. Because no one knew. Not even Gu Shenfeng knew. At that very moment, Lin Jixia was busy unpacking in a modest apartment on the west side of the city. The unit measured just over 70 square meters. It lacked the spaciousness of a villa. It had no garden. Nor did it have a dedicated walk-in closet. But it was quiet. She placed the last potted succulent on the balcony. Then stepped back 2 paces to take a good, long look. The sunlight streamed in at just the right angle. The Xinghao Haworthia Xinghao plant she had nurtured for 7 years seemed to glow with a translucent light, resembling a tiny crystal. Her phone rang. It was Zhou Xiaowen. The moment she answered the call, the other end of the line erupted into a frenzy of noise. My God! Did you really move out? Do you have any idea what kind of rumors are flying around out there right now? Lin Jixia smiled faintly. What are people saying? Some say you ran away from home. Others say Gu Zhenfeng is preparing for a divorce. And some even claim you were kicked out. Lin Jixia pushed the window open. Breeze drifted in. Let them talk. Zhou Xiaowen fell silent for a moment. Then, she suddenly asked. Do you regret it? Lin Jixia gazed down at the street below. The breakfast stall was packing up for the day. A young father was riding his electric scooter, taking his child to school. Two elderly women were arguing heatedly, faces flushed with indignation over who got to claim the prime spot for their morning square dancing. Life went on, just as usual. Suddenly, she felt a profound sense of lightness. No, I don't regret it. Why? Because for a long time now, I haven't been able to hear my own thoughts. Silence fell on the other end of the line. Zhou Xiaowen sighed. You know what? The way you speak now is completely different from before. How is it different? In the past, you were always talking about Gu Zhenfeng, how he was, how your mother-in-law was, how things were at home. Now, finally, you've started talking about yourself. Lin Jixia froze for a moment. She offered no reply. For she realized. Zhou Xiaowen was right. Meanwhile, elsewhere. Inside Gu Zhenfeng's office. The atmosphere was far less relaxed. It was 10 o'clock in the morning. He had just wrapped up a meeting. His secretary brought him a cup of coffee. She did so, she remarked. Mr. Gu, word has already gotten out about Mrs. Gu moving out. Gu Zhenfeng didn't even lift his head. So be it. She'll be back in a few days. The secretary nodded. She said nothing more. But just as she reached the door, Gu Zhenfeng suddenly called out to her again. Wait. Mr. Gu. Has she contacted you? The secretary paused, looking slightly taken aback. No, she hasn't. Oh. Gu Zhenfeng lowered his gaze, returning to the documents on his desk. Yet, for a long while, he didn't turn a single page. After the secretary had left, he picked up his phone. He tapped on Lin Jixia's profile picture. Their chat history ended 3 days ago. The final line read, Happy anniversary. Below that, nothing but empty space. Gu Zhenfeng suddenly felt a surge of irritation. He tossed his phone onto the desk, telling himself, it's nothing. She's just sulking. It's been 15 years. When has it ever been any different? At noon, Zhao Meiling arrived at the office, carrying a thermal food container. It was her habit to bring soup to her son once a week. The first thing she asked upon entering was, has Jixia come back yet? Gu Zhenfeng shook his head. No. Zhao Meiling sneered. She certainly has quite a temper. How many days does she think she can keep this up? Gu Zhenfeng offered no reply. Zhao Meiling continued. That's just how women are. They can't live without a man. She's acting tough right now. But once her bank account runs dry in a few days, she'll come crawling right back. Gu Zhenfeng picked up the soup and took a sip. Then, he suddenly asked, Ma, do you think she might actually, Xinghao not Xinghao, come back? Zhao Meiling nearly burst out laughing. How could that possibly happen? What has she done all these years besides cook and look after the kids? She couldn't even find a job if she went out looking for one. Don't you worry. Give it a month, tops. She'll be the one begging to come back. Gu Zhenfeng nodded. Yet, for some reason, that sense of irritation in his heart didn't fade. Instead, it grew heavier. That evening, family dinner gathering was held. Gu Zhenfeng attended as usual. During the meal, several relatives naturally brought up the topic of Lin Jixia. How has sister-in-law been lately? When is she coming back? Zhenfeng, you'd better not have actually driven her away for good. Gu Zhenfeng smiled and waved his hand dismissively. Not a chance. She can't live without this home. Everyone laughed heartily. The atmosphere was light and relaxed. But just then, his younger sister, Gu Lin, suddenly spoke up. Brother. Sister-in-law updated her moments today. Gu Zhenfeng froze for a moment. What did she post? Gu Lin handed her phone over to him. In the photo, there was a simple wooden table. On the table sat a cup of coffee, small potted succulent, and an old book. The caption consisted of just a single line. The breeze is gentle, the sunshine is lovely. There were no complaints. No tales of woe. She didn't even mention the Gu family. Yet, Gu Shengfeng felt an inexplicable sense of unease. It was because of Lin Jixia in the photo. She didn't look not in the slightest like someone who couldn't go on living. On the drive home, Zhao Meiling also saw that WeChat moment post. She was furious. She's faking it. She's definitely faking it. As if I don't know her. How much money could she possibly have in her bank account? Gu Shengfeng remained silent. Outside the car window, the neon lights receded endlessly into the distance. Suddenly, he was reminded of many years ago. Back when Lin Jixia had just married into the family. She used to be so full of laughter. She would drag him along to art exhibitions. She would pour over all sorts of new recipes. She would excitedly recount stories she'd read in books. When did she change? He couldn't recall. The next morning, Zhao Meiling received a phone call. It was from an old friend, Auntie Wang. Meiling. Did your daughter-in-law move out recently? Zhao Meiling's expression instantly soured. Who told you that? Oh, everyone's talking about it. Anyway, I saw her at the mall yesterday. She looked like she was in high spirits. She even bought quite a few things. Zhao Meiling's heart skipped a beat. Bought what? I think it was flower pots, a bookshelf, and a computer. After hanging up the phone, the more she thought about it, the more something felt off. By all rights, a woman who had just left her home. Shouldn't she be panicked? Shouldn't she be riddled with anxiety? How could she possibly be in the mood to buy flower pots? Or a bookshelf? Suddenly, she was seized by an indescribable sense of unease. Meanwhile, at an apartment in the city's West District, Lin Jixia was busy assembling a bookshelf. She squatted on the floor, studying the instruction manual for ages. In the end, she still put it together backward. Frustrated yet amused by her own ineptitude, she burst into laughter. Just then, the doorbell rang. She opened the door. Zhou Xiaowen stood on the threshold, clutching 2 large bags filled with supplies. A housewarming gift. What is it? The same potato chips you find in American supermarkets. Canadian maple leaf cookies. And something I managed to snag online.